Welcome to the Married People Podcast, where we help you make marriage real, fun, and simple. Each week, we have honest conversations about one simple thing that can make your marriage better. Because when your marriage is better, everything's better. I'm CJ, and here today we have our resident newlywed, Afton.
Hi.
And we have our 22-year marriage veteran. He's an author, speaker, and the director of marriedpeople.org, Ted Lowe.
Hey, everybody.
And today on the Married People Podcast, we're going to look at the question, how do I live out for better or for worse? Now, that phrase, for better or for worse, Ted, super common in marriage vows. And even if you wrote your own vows, there are those similar sentiments. But we say that in...
Similar, very morbid sentiments that we just slide into our vows on our happiest day.
We just say them, and we don't really think about what they actually mean.
I 100% agree. We wrote our own vows, but those ideas were still kind of in there. And I remember... we just breezed through writing them. I pretty much let Hudson write them. I'm like, I trust you. Put whatever you want there. So we get up.
Write down my promises.
Write down what you want me to promise to you, and I'll sign wherever you need me to sign. And I remember getting up and being at our wedding, standing in front of Hudson and saying something like, for better or for worse. And all right then in that moment, I was like, what? Wait. What's worse? Time out, define what worse is, because that seems really terrible. How bad are we talking?
It's kind of like fine print. It's just it covers the spectrum of whatever life throws at you, you're promised to stay together.
Yes.
And we don't feel the gravity of it. The priority in that moment is what's going to sound great in front of 100 people, not, what do I really want to promise my spouse?
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about today, Ted, for better or for worse, and what that really means for our marriages. But before we get down that road too far, I thought we could throw out a few for better or for worse scenarios in marriage, just to see, hey, maybe if your spouse did this, at a higher, funnier level.
Yeah.
Is this for better or for worse?
Well, because I think what's interesting is that for different people, how your spouse handles a situation could make it worse or could make it better. And they might not even know if they're making the situation worse or making it better.
I'll throw out one to start to you, Ted and Afton.
We're so excited for what you have to share.
So this is, for better, is this a for better or for worse thing if Nancy or if Hudson did this for you?
Okay.
A surprise birthday party when you get home from work on your birthday, or a surprise weekend trip to Asheville. Are those things, those big surprises, a better thing for you or a worse thing for you? Because I know what they are for me.
Do I need to pick one?
Well, it's just the surprise element.
Okay.
Either one.
It makes it better.
In the same
for me.
category.
It makes it better for me. I probably would like the better weekend. Separated, but still a surprise. That would be so awesome. I would be so grateful. If it was the surprise with all my friends, my birthday, I'd be oh, thanks for trying, and appreciative and act like I wanted everyone there and to see everybody on my birthday. But really, I would just want to go home.
But surprise weekend trip, definitely for better.
Definitely for better.
Surprise birthday party with friends and stuff is kind of so
fine, but I would definitely tell Hudson later, hey, don't ever do that again.
It's sweet, but no thanks.
And you guys would be there, and I'd be I'm so glad you guys are here. Thanks for coming to my birthday party. But I secretly would not be happy that it was happening.
Be dead inside.
All right, Ted, what about you? So are those things, weekend trip to Asheville surprise, birthday party surprise, are those for better for you or for worse?
Well, I have to tell you guys a crazy story. So for my 40th birthday, Nancy wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and she says, no one's dead, but I need you to get up.
That's a good way to preface that.
Because we've had those phone calls in the middle of the night a couple times. It's she knows if she ever wakes me up, she has to immediately say, no one's dead. So no one's dead. Taking you somewhere for your birthday, so get up. I've packed everything. All you need to do is take a shower. So
were you happy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we get in the car and we start driving toward the airport, and I'm like, where are we going? Because she's so great with money.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I didn't know what the heck we were doing. So we get to the airport, and she hands me this T-shirt that she's had especially screen printed, and it says, "Do not tell me where I'm going. I'm surprising my husband for his birthday." And then she gives me a mask, and she says, with googly eyes, and she goes, and earphones. She goes, "I've worked really hard on this. And she even took a part-time job to pay for all this.
Wow.
I know. So she puts she said, I want you to wear these earphones, put on the t-shirt, wear the earphone, and put on the mask. And I was like, okay.
It looks like you're getting kidnapped,
yes.
by the way.
Walking through the airport with a googly eye mask.
Exactly. She says, I've worked really hard on this, and I don't want you to know where you're going. So she gives me that look that she gives me when she can get anything in the world she wants. So I was like, of course. I said, but can I not do the mask because we may get arrested? And she goes, yeah, no mask. And so every time I would hear any kind of audio, anything, I would cram the earphones down my ears, the whole thing. I got my head down. I am really going to. So we get on the plane, and of course, the flight attendants are loving it. They're laughing, and they're making a big deal about it or whatever. And I had no idea where we're going. Basically, at the end of the day, I felt like we kept flying and flying and flying. But we landed, and she said, now you have to put the mask on. We have a layover. And I went, a layover? Good grief. Where are we going? Where are we going? And then, so we get out of the airplane. She pulls the mask back, and we're in Southern California, and all our buddies are there.
Wow.
And we just spent a week we went straight to Disneyland at that point. Of
course.
And all these people kept popping up, like people I haven't seen forever. My best friend flew out, and we're sitting at dinner, and I feel somebody like rubbing on my shoulders, and I turn around, it's my best friend there. So she killed it.
Wow. That is next level spouse surprises.
Yeah, that was killer. And
that's marriage goals.
Yeah. So that's so fun. So I tried to do something great for her, but she's like, oh, you can't spend that kind of money. So I'm like,
It was just as much as a gift for her to surprise you with it as it was for you. Because she probably loved every second of it.
She did, and we had such a great time. So anyway, too long a story, but yeah, surprises are good, especially ones like that.
Well, as wonderful as that story is, Ted, for me,
I hate all of it.
a surprise weekend trip or surprise birthday when I got home from work with people there, that would be a for worse thing for me. A for better thing would be surprise. Here is a trip I planned for like 3 months from now that you have 3 months to get mentally prepared for.
I thought it was just the people versus the trip. But not only do you not want the people, you want the trip and advance notice.
You don't want any surprise.
Terry, if you're listening to this,
I hate to sound. I feel like I sound like such a lame person on this podcast all the time.
Well, you need the 3 months so that you can prep and go to Dick's Sporting Goods as much as you need.
Right.
That you can go get all of your gear.
It's just my about.
Yeah, it's true. It's my personality that I like to build up to these things. And even a birthday party wouldn't be, a bad thing. But it's just like I need to get excited and build, build steam up to it.
No, it's Hudson that way because Nancy's very much like CJ.
Yes, so is Hudson. Hudson wants no birthday anything. Doesn't even want to be recognized by any friends.
See, and Hudson's a cool guy.
Yeah,
so I could be cool too.
He's super cool.
Yeah, Nancy hates that. She goes, I don't like birthday pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, now it's my turn.
Oh, yeah.
I have one. I have one too. Okay. I did mine a little bit differently because I didn't know what the format of these questions were.
I just made that up too as we went.
Okay. You did a great job, CJ, but mine's probably better. Okay. Here's my question. Okay. I'm going to give you a scenario and then I'm going to give you choice A or choice B, and you're supposed to choose which one you personally would think was for better, made the situation better, or made the situation worse. Okay. All right. So this is a real thing too, also that happened to me. Just FYI. That's why I was able to come up with it so easily. Okay. Let's say it's tax season, right? Let's pretend it's tax season.
Because it kind of is.
It basically is.
Yes.
And you're like, say you're just like kind of stressed out about the tax season because maybe your husband does some self-employment work and that just always really screws up your tax situation, right? So you're like a little bit stressed about it. He, in order to make you feel better, takes every file that you have in your house and lays them out on the kitchen floor just to like kind of get a bird's eye view of all the file situation we've got going on, relabels all of them, reorganizes all of them.
Wow.
All
Good
the files. Or two, he knows you're feeling stressed out, so he just takes you to like a nice dinner and like tries to help you just feel a little better and like kind of calm your nerves about the idea of tax season coming up.
Yeah.
What for you personally, and I know mine's very girl specific, like mine's very like take me out to dinner, but like for you personally, would you rather have like which of those makes the situation better or worse?
For me, I'll jump in first because I know exactly what it is. It's A, lay it all out, get a bird's eye view. If I go out to dinner, Afton, I haven't fixed anything. Like it's
but you
still
feel better.
It's
But
still
you might feel a little better.
It's still in the back of my mind. I need to fix it. So definitely dinner for worse because it's still on my mind.
Yeah.
A is for better because now I can see what I'm dealing with.
Okay, great. Ted.
This is embarrassing, but I haven't done our taxes ever. I don't look at them. I don't think about them. I just sign papers. And that's so like
Ted has never filed taxes. Is what we're
I
saying.
haven't. I could go to jail for years.
It's a good thing you've been married.
Well, you always hear people, her husband passed away, and and she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. If Nancy's like, you should die first because you will not know how to live without me. It's true. So I have no experience with that at all. But often I have a feeling that you do.
I have 100% experience because this exact scenario happened to me last week, and I walked into the kitchen and I'm like, why can I not walk to the refrigerator because there's just a pile of files everywhere. And can I just say this? And it just made it even worse because Hudson's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just change our whole filing system. And first I'm going to sit down and I'm going to type out every file that I think we should have. And then he recreated every file, even though there were some files down there that already were labeled that. And I'm like, why don't you just alphabetize based on what we have and then see? And he's like, no. I want to write it all out first. I want to write it all out in my Evernote. And then I'll go and just make them all. And I'm like, this is the most inefficient way to do this. I'm going to go watch TV.
Right. Okay, I'm not sure what to do. but then she says, you know what? It's so sweet. And she goes back and she goes, you know what, Hudson? Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, you're like, maybe I overreacted and I thank you for doing
after an intervention.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm just like, are the taxes done yet?
Yeah. I'm going to be in the other room.
I'll be in the other room.
I know that's very Afton of you, and I know
you.
Hudson loves that about you. That
Absolutely.
all of that.
I mean, he was kind of looking at me like, should I not be doing this? And I'm like, you know what? Just you do you. Do whatever you need to do.
You do you.
I'll be with Netflix.
I would totally do something like that. Like I would never try to go. I don't have to create all the labels. Like I would want to do it all fresh and they look printed on the same day.
Yep.
If I knew what taxes were.
If I knew what a file folder was.
Exactly.
Now, before the IRS comes after you, Ted, your wife is an accountant, so that helps
That's
the
very
situation.
helpful.
We are just leveraging her gifts.
Oh,
That's great.
Yeah.
Well,
remember that phrase.
leveraging your gift.
She sends me into awkward social situations that she doesn't want to go in. Too. So
Well, see, it's just
balance.
Yeah, there you go.
For better or worse.
Yeah, for better, for worse. What a segue.
What a segue.
Well, we are talking about that today, and I hope that was a little entertaining, getting a little bit of an insight into our marriages and our personalities a little bit. But when we get down to it, Ted, this phrase, for better or for worse, goes a lot further and a lot deeper than taxes or surprise birthday parties. And so what are we really wrestling with here, Ted, when it gets down to it?
Well, you think about couples, like, if you're listening right now, like who's that couple, and maybe you're that couple, that they just have it together, like in terms of they enjoy each other, they love each other. Chances are those are people that also have been through a lot of for better, for worse. Mm-hmm. So I think the question we always want to wrestle with a little bit is what's the difference between the two couples that, a storm hits and they are pulled together and a storm hits and it pushes people apart. Like what are the difference between those two couples? Because we're all going to face for better, for worse. I mean, that's just part of the being married. That's just part of life, basically. So their tension is, that a life committed to for better, for worse has a lot of worse. There's a lot of worse times. There's going to have it. So the question is, what do we do about that? What's the response to that?
So what is the response to that, Ted?
Well,
what should it be?
There's a great line from Anna Karenina. It's a classic, and maybe you've heard it before. It says, "Happy families are all alike, every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. And I think that's it. I think, Satan's the author of confusion. There's a lot of complexity to confusion. There's a lot of despair. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of search, trying to dig through to find the answers. And so there's all this chaos. And God's way is clearer. It's not easier, but it always feels clearer. It always feels less confused. And so I think happy couples tend to do kind of the same thing, and it's an easier thing to understand. It's not easier to live out, but it is easier to understand. And it's all about, I think it all has to do with what is our response? Because our response to our spouse during times of for better, for worse, will make it better or it'll make it worse. Let me say it again. Our response to our spouse during times of for better, for worse, will make it better or make it worse. So when you're in the middle of those, honestly, our response is kind of like the engine and the motivator and the rudder behind where this is going to take us. Is this going to make us better, or is this going to make us worse?
Mm-hmm. So, can you give us an example of something like that, or what those situations look like, and walk us through those different responses, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I'll start with a little bit of an extreme example, but I think it makes the point. I've helped out an organization called Miles Apart. And Miles Apart was started by some friends of ours who, this little boy was the same age as our oldest one, and we were friends with them. And about 18 months in, we started noticing their son was changing. He was becoming less social, and so he was diagnosed with autism. And so we've kind of partnered with them and walked beside them during this time, and it's been really, really difficult. He's really, really on the tough end of the spectrum, and so this couple's so great, and they said, we need to figure out how to pour into these families who have children with autism, because it's so tough and there's some common struggles, and how can we do that? Well, they do a retreat 4 times a year, and they'll get 5 to 6 couples, a lot of them who have not been off, just the 2 of them, since the birth of their child, because it's hard to find childcare, it's all those different things. And so I've probably done this retreat, spent a day with them. I've probably done it 10 times. And I was driving home, and I was like, what is the difference between the couples where this is actually served to bring them together, and for the couples where it's devastating? The divorce rate for people who have children with autism is very, very high. So what's the difference? And I started putting all the thoughts and all the things I'd heard over the years, and I thought it really, really boils down to how they're viewing the situation, and then how they're responding to the situation, and what are they choosing. And so, for instance, one lady said that she would stay with the kids all day. She actually had 3 kids, and 2 of them were autistic or had autism. And she said when her husband would come home, all the kids would go run and flood him, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," and he'd fall on the floor with them. And she said, to be honest, it just made me mad. She goes, they're not hugging me ever during the day. I feel like I'm the one that's working really hard here. And then he gets to be the hero for 2 hours tonight. Great. And she said, I was just so bitter about that. And she goes, and the answer couldn't be, hey, stop loving the kids when you walk through the door.
Right.
And so she goes,
no more love.
No more love. She said, one day I just decided, you know what? I'm going to join in. So they're all wrestling the floor. She said, I just jumped in, and I started being part of that. And so it was, for her, It was, how am I going to do this? And I'm going to view this in a different way. We've had ones who said, we were fighting each other. We used to use each other like a punching bag, and now we use each other like a soft pillow to land. And that was a choice of response. That was a choice of how they view the situation, and it made all the difference in the world. And what was so great about it, it wasn't that the ones that were doing this were naturally like this already. For some of them, maybe their marriage was stronger. And, some marriages are high maintenance and some of them are low maintenance. But some of these couples had a really high maintenance marriage before, and a tough marriage before, but really used this to pull them together. Like they weren't naturally easy. They weren't naturally this way, but they made these choices. And that's what I love about marriage, is we can really choose a different way.
So what I'm hearing you say, Ted, is that, we're talking about living out for better or for worse, and we're all going to have these better and worse moments. And the way you live it out is by choosing the right response, or choosing a response, because your response, to use a word you used a few minutes ago, which I like, your response is the engine that drives your marriage one way or another. Is that
100%?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think your response is really important. I feel like whenever me and Hudson, I mean, we've only been married for 2 years, but we've had to deal with like a lot of stuff already. And I just feel like whenever you are in one of those places where like life is just hard, for me, it makes it easier when Hudson comes to me and is like, life is hard right now, right? And it's like, yes, thank you for saying that. Like, life is hard for both of us, and I'm glad we're on the same page. And like, it just makes you feel like we're all in this together instead of like, you're making life hard on me. You know what I mean? Like, we're both in the same boat, and we're just there for each other.
I love that.
You know?
And again, he's not fixing it, right? He's not coming, he's saying it's hard. And that's, at the risk of stereotyping, I mean, for a lot of wives, that's what they just want to hear is this is tough, and you recognize it, you know? I'm even that some way sometimes with Nancy. Like, sometimes I'll say something and she'll say, but this. I'm like, don't need you to fix it.
Right.
I don't need you to fix it.
Yeah.
But it's huge. It's we're in this. And again, that's that mindset of we're in this together.
And what's helpful is that when you do go through those like kind of dark periods, when you know you're coming out on the other side, I feel like it just puts all the other things into perspective.
Yeah,
like the things that you could ruin your day, like you take your car in and you're like, now I got to pay all this money for a car. You're like, well, I'm not doing, we're not in the situation we were in XYZ, 6 months ago. This we can handle. I think you said a couple podcasts ago, Ted, I don't remember like the phrasing that you used. Do you remember, CJ? It was like, we know hard times and this ain't it, or something like that. Is that what you said?
Tragedy, this ain't it.
Yeah. And I told Hudson that later that day because I was like, I just feel like that's a really helpful phrase when you're in the middle of something and it feels like this is a tragedy. Like what we're dealing with is a tragedy. And then on the other side, you're like, well, now we really have perspective on what a hard time really is. And this isn't it anymore. Like, we're not in it.
But, to counter that a little bit.
Of course, CJ, yes.
I'm so contrary. Sometimes, I remember that podcast. Can't remember the title of it. But yeah, Ted said, we know tragedy and this ain't it. And for us, we kind of, Terry and I, we rephrased it. We know challenging seasons and this isn't it. But what we're talking about today, I think some of those worst seasons could be those tragedy or challenging seasons. Like that, I think what we're talking about today, those are some of those seasons. And now we are in that worst season. This is a challenging season. This is a tragedy. We see it. And now our response to it can either be the engine that drives us together or drives us apart.
Yeah. I mean, right now we're in a season where we're traveling a ton. So, we have 3 very busy kids. We have full-time jobs and we're traveling speaking. So we know that we're just in and out of airports and different places, and we're exhausted. And so we kind of went into this thing, and Nancy kind of led the way on this one because I'm the one that starts getting so exhausted, and I don't know, I guess more emotional, less whatever. And she's like, "All right, this is going to be tough. This is going to be a tough season, but we're going to have great attitudes, and we're just going to roll, and we're just going to do the next right thing." And so, again, it's that chosen response because you've got the things from people dealing with really struggles with trying to figure out how to have great marriage with kids with special needs to, hey, we're on airplanes too much. I know those sound like 2 different things, but it's our life. And even how do we make that worse better?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I know what my natural response is in times of like crisis or tragedy. And I know for me personally, like when something happens, I want to withdraw. Like I will find excuses to work later, like just stay at the office so I don't have to deal with whatever situation's happening at home. Or like even when you like talk about like self-medicating, it's not always like necessarily an addiction, but it's like I will just like read a book to get out of reality, or I'll watch movies endlessly to get out of reality. And you find ways to cope with your situation so that you don't actually have to have a conversation or face anything head on. And I feel like if you know what your tendency is during times of crisis or tragedy or just dark, challenging times, it's easier for you to combat that and say, okay, when I get home, I'm going to really try to be present for at least the first 30 minutes and not immediately go to my room and shut the door, because I need to be present for my family or whatever it is. Like, I just know my natural inclination during those times when that's just how I respond. I just want to like kind of separate myself from it and like not have to deal.
That is such the perfect example, because what are we always saying? Real fun, simple, like, well, that's it. Like 30 minutes, I'm going to stay really, really engaged. That's perfect example.
Yeah. All right, Ted. So this is all great. We're talking about, higher level, your response is the engine in those for better, for worse moments that can really steer your marriage in one direction or the other. And I think we would all agree with that. But trying to figure out, okay, now what is challenging when it comes to this idea because it feels so intangible. But as we always like to do, Ted, we like to boil things down to one simple thing. So what is the one simple thing that we can tangibly wrap around this big idea?
Yeah, so I think the one simple thing for this one is, for us to ask a question. What is one area of your life where you can respond in a way that makes something that's tough better? How can you make a worse better?
Yeah, I know I kind of already talked about it, but I know for me, it's like I tend to isolate myself when we're in a hard season, or I just don't want to deal with like the reality of what's happening in our lives right now. So I think for me, it's like the challenge is be present. And I feel like, don't you know those people where in hard seasons, even like when we had Sandy Wise on a couple podcasts ago, maybe it was our last podcast, it's like there are those people that they go through such tragedy and they still somehow like have joy. And I just am so inspired by people like that are able to like be in a tough situation and like not show it on their face all the time, or not like, even though they're dealing with it and it is terrible, it's like I know these people that can take a hard situation and find a way to laugh or find a way to lighten it a little bit. And I just am like always trying to be that person, because I feel like my tendency is to like say, this is a hard situation and look how hard it is. It's so hard. Everyone look at how hard it is. It's really hard. Sure. And I feel like I know these people that have gone through so much worse and they're able to laugh and I just really want to try to be that when hard situations are happening.
Yeah. For me, I like this one simple thing, Ted, because I think it hits home a little bit for me, because if I'm being transparent, I feel like Terry and I are in a little bit of a worse season because we've been, again, just real honest conversations, right, guys? We've been trying to get pregnant for a year and a half now. And this just seems like a worse season for us and a relevant place to talk about it. And so it's a pointed question. It's a pointed one simple thing for me because, and it's not something I'm probably going to have an answer for right here in the moment, but what is the way I can respond to Terry into this situation that, we're in season of life that we're in? How can I make this quote unquote worse situation better? And so I think this is something that hits home, Ted. So I appreciate this one simple thing for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's tough, and it's unfortunately very, very common that couples they go through it. And, every 30 days there's this huge disappointment, of going, oh, wow. And so,
and that's what it is. It feels like every 30 days, it's another worse situation. And right now, we just live in that, 30 days to 30 days. And we let the situation probably dictate how we feel and respond, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I think this is a great challenge to figure out a way to respond to it instead of letting it make us respond, if that makes sense.
Have you guys talked through like what you need on this, those 30 days, like what you need and what she needs? Have you guys had that conversation?
Well, I think we need different things, and we probably need to ask that of each other. But I know, for my personality is that fix it personality, and Terry's is that feel it personality. And I think we need different things. And sometimes I think what makes this situation especially challenging is we both need those things at the same time. Usually, in a marriage, someone's down and so I can support Terry, or, I'm down and Terry can support me. But this is a unique, worse situation, I'm using air quotes, where we both need something at the same time, and we both need to figure out how to respond to the situation and to each other at the same time, so that our response becomes an engine that, to again recap what we're talking about here, brings us together instead of drives us apart every 30 days. You know?
Well, CJ, I feel like you've just made a very profound point that maybe what makes worse so difficult is that we're both at a place that's really, really tough. We're both at worse. And that does make it difficult because we have talked about that before, that it seems like that we're never both in a tough spot, like we can build that. But during those times, you're exactly right. You're both at worst. And maybe that time more than any is the not fix it. It's just right now it's going, wow, this is so hard.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I didn't mean to bring down the podcast, guys, but I just wanted to bring our real stories. Afton, you bring your real stories all the time with Hudson and with Julian and your family, and Ted. You've shared a lot too, and I feel like I want all of us to this round table to be a place where we can all be real, because we always talk about making marriage real. That's
right.
CJ, thanks for sharing, because I mean, seriously, I feel like it helps us to get insight into your life, because I think people that are listening are going through really similar situations.
Because I'm not a robot, Afton.
You're not a robot.
As much as you tend to think.
You are not a robot. You do have feelings.
I have feelings.
And when you express them, I think it's helpful to people that are going through similar situations, that they feel like they're not alone in it. Like there's someone else that they can reach out to. And I think it'd be great if they reached out to us. I mean, if you're going through a hard time, or if you're going through a situation that's similar to any of ours, if you're in a step family situation, or you're going through what CJ is going through, or Ted, you're an expert in basically everything else.
If you have any issues at all,
go to Ted. But you know what? I'm really interested in kind of. I would love to hear from our listeners. We're so grateful for you, and we feel like you're part of this conversation with us. And so I would just really love to hear from you guys. What do you do when you're in like a for worse season? And what are some ways that you try to make a step towards connecting with your spouse in those times? I know, CJ, for you, it probably involves frozen yogurt.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Treating each other
frozen yogurt, lots of frozen yogurt.
Yeah, with all
Halo Top ice cream.
All of the healthy things on top, because but I'm interested in what our listeners do when they're in these seasons. I just think it actually would be really helpful for us to be able to even have like a list of ways that it's like, hey, in this hard time, we go mini golfing. I don't know. And I'm not trying to make light of anybody's situation, but it's like, what can you do in your marriage to help in those for worse times make them a little bit better?
That's great. If you want to give us your thoughts and your feedback, the best way to do that is to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or visit our website. So connect with us and let us know what your answer is to what Afton is asking. Facebook.com/marriedpeople, Instagram.com/married_people, and then marriedpeople.org/podcast if you want to leave your comments in our show notes. So that is a great question, Afton, and I'm excited to hear and see what people's thoughts are on this.
I mean, selfishly, I can't wait to hear what they say, because I would like to try some of them out.
Yes, bring it on, people. Bring it on.
We need help.
Well, thank you guys for joining us for the Married People podcast. We hope that today's episode helped you realize that marriage is a little easier than you think. If you enjoyed today's episode, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast through your Apple Podcasts app or wherever you're listening to this episode. And while you're there, we would love for you to leave us a review. Your review will help us make this podcast better. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Let us know what conversations you want us to have. And finally, for more great resources to make your marriage better, you can check out Ted's book. It's called Your Best Us. You can find it on Amazon and through our website, marriedpeople.org. Until next time, I'm CJ.
I'm Afton.
I'm Ted.
And thank you for listening.